ex librum quatur mundi subterranei Athanesi Kirchure hanc caput quarto de Daemonibus subterraneis. Daemones subterraneos esse non tantum profani, sed et sacri scriptores unanimi consensu asserunt, de quibus vide denrium. Cum enim lucem velut divini vultus signaculum ficientes potestates tenebrarum harum, certe congruentior illis assignare non debuit, nisi subterraneum perennium tenebrarum baratrum, juxta illud Iudae apostoli versa sexta. Angelos vero qui non serva verunt suum principatum, sed relinquerunt suum domicilium in judicium magni Dei vinculis aeterni sub calignire servavit. Daemones itaque subterraneus tenebrarum potestates dari, ita certumst, ut de eos in fidei iactura dubitare nemo posit. Et quoniam justa Dei dispensatione humanae formae larvis in tutti hominibus sub inde sive ad tentandos, sive ad torquendos eos apparent, nei et in subterraneo nostro mundo ex omnibus creaturarum gradibus constituto deesent. Hoc loco Deis tractandum censui, ut quid dehisce sentiendum sit, quomodo techniceorum resistendum constaret. In tribus potissimum locis daemones observatos historici tradunt, primo in septentrionalibus perpetua caligne damnatis regionibus, secundo in horridis solitudinibus, tertio in subterraneis fodinarum meliticarum coniculis. Quoniam vero dicti daemonculi plerumque sub forma nani cupitalis comperarent. Hinc fabula de pygmies ad Chrypaeos montes cum gruibus pugnantibus nata esse videtur, quos geographia in extremo septentrionis regno ponunt. Geographia arabica in regnum Gog et Magog, qui consentiunt omnes septentrionalium rerum scriptores. Paulus Jovius in libro de Moscovitarum legatione utra Lapones inquit in regione intercorum et Aquilonem perpetua oppressa caligine pygmaeos reperiri, aliqui eximiae fidei testes retulerunt, qui postquam ad summam adoloverunt, nostratis pueri denum annorum mensarum non excedunt. Meticuloso hominum genus et garritus sermonum exprimens, adiot tam simiae propinqui, quam statura et sensibus iuxtaque pro caritate ab homine remote videantur. Dehisce vide olau magnum, qui eos screlingerus hoc est cubitales appellat. Meminerunt et huius modi monstrorum acutores gravissimi, Plutarchus, Ctesius, Plinius ac proinde ea aliquando visa esse, ut non facile nega vero, ita homines eos veros fuisse non facile assevero, cum huius mode hominum in tanta orbis terrarum perlustrati notia nulla natio inventa sit, cuius modi pygmaeorum altrix. Unde concluditur eos a rupibus et agrestibus hominibus in ultimo septentrionis angulo tenebris ferre perennibus damnato visos esse. Cum enim dicti homines teste oleo ad omne superstitionis genus proclives sint, et Daemonibus facilis e devo veant. Mirum sane nemini vitere debet, eos sub humana pygmaei forma, tum ad superstitionem in simpliciorum animis propagandum, tum ad eos beneficiis quibus interdum afficiuntur devinciendos a perrere. Si enim tale homunculorum gelus in calignosis istius mone regionibus extitit, cur curiosissimos batavos latuerunt, qui jam assexigint annorum spatio ferre nihil aliot agunt, quam ut non dicam quosuis abstrusissimo septentrionis, sed et orbis terrarum angulos explorare non definant, nihil tamen de huis modi pygmaeorum natione compererint, cur nullus quius modi nanorum ex Lapia, Biarmia, Cremesia, Finlandia, cae Tarisque, in Germania vicinas nationes, Sueciam, Daniam, Hollandiam, quam abductus fuit. Cum tamen minoris momenti monstra ex ultimis indarum partibus sequum in patriam abducere non definant, neque hodierna die ullus reperitor, qui similem pygnaeum cubitalem in is partibus se vidisse asservirare audeat. Fabulosae taque sunt omnia, quae de huius modi pygmais veteres geographia simplici populo sola relatione descripta tradiderunt. Et sicut undam, ita fabula fabulam tutit. Tum huius mode pu miliorum antigeranomachien ad miraculum adnectunt, id est exercitu facto contra offenso sibi grues perpetuo bello distineri fingunt. Video iorandum et oleam dehisce fusius agentes. Dico itaque hosce nullos alios si umquam visi fuerunt, quam daemones caligniosorum quis mode locorum amatores fuisse, qui agrestum populum sine ulla lege ac religione viventem sub inde ad eos sibi perpetua serviture de viciendos decipientes apparuerint. Unde postea fabulosa de pygmais narratio totum orbem non solum opleverit, sed quod mirum est in animis hominum etiam sapientissimorum videm invenit. Unde ego certo mihi persuadeo, huius mode pu miliorum fantasticas terras ex eorum numero esse, quos in hunc usque diem in metallorum fodinis non infrequenter offendunt, quos et daemunculos montanos vocant, de quibus ita gorgeos agricola librum de animalibus subteranneis. Occurrit autem duplex horum daemunculorum genus, unum asperum, ferum, vultu terrificium, quod snebergeum vocant, quod ubi congitatem fuerit, maxima ruinas fossores invulvit. Sunt dende mites quidam daemones, quos Germanorum alii etiam Graeci cobalos indigitant, eo quod hominum sint imitatores, nam quaesi laetitia gestientes rident, multa videntur facere, cum prorsus nihil faciant. Alii nominant virunculos montanos Bergmanlin, significantes staturam qua plerique sunt. Nempe nani 3 dodrantes longi, videntur autem esse senectiones et vestiti more metacalcorum, id est vitato indusso et corio circalumbos de pendente induti. Qui damnum dare non solent metallicis, sed vagantur in puteis et cuniculis, et cum nil agant in omni laborum genere se ex ercere videntur. Quasi modo fodiant venas, modo in vasa, quod e fossum est infundant, modo versent machiam tractorium, quamquam vero interdio glareis ilias sarant operarios rarissime tamen eos laedunt, nec laedunt umquam nisi prius ipsi cacino fuerint, aut maledicto laecesiti, non dissimiles is Daemonibus, quos gutelos aut trulas Germani vocant, sexum tam mulieris, quam viri e mentito, cum apud alias nationes tum apud sueones maxime in famulato fuisse ferunt. Haec Agricola. Ex quibus aperte patet, hosce eostem esse, quos in ultimo septentrionis passu fabulorum officio functos dicit. Relatum est mihi et hosce montanos daemonculos in Tirolensium fodinis spectare, quibus nisi ex quotidiando comeatur portiunculam, ex pulte placentulis caese oque constitutam, certo loco deponant. Fossores eodie periculo non carere, adioque daemonis austus huius mode superstitione fossores infatuat, ut non nulli quoque vexationem eius sacro quodam ritu redimere non vereantur, omnibusque modis placare studeant, potissimum dum certos quosdam daemonis maleatoris ictus audiunt. Tum enim Fausti id in novis venis auriferis mox detegendis signum esse prorsus sibis persuadent. Et haec confirmat Cisatus iam saepe allegatus in descriptione Helvetici montis, quem Pilati vocant, his verbis ex Germanico in Latinum traductis. Inter caetera mira quaedam referuntur de virinculis montanis, quos Bergmanin vocant, nanorum forma et statura praeditis, qui in huius montis cavernis et abditis cuniculis habitase, et cum fossoribus metallicis mira exercuisse, quosdam auro donatos amase, alios diris modis infestase, quid et quosdam ira concitati per montium scopulosas cautes praecipitase feruntur, quae quidem non per fabulosos hosce pygmaios, sed per cacodaemonum tecnas variasque illusiones justo Dei judicio accidisse verisimile est. Scripsit non ita pridam vir haud in eruditus ad me, saepe huius mode diabolica spectra sub forma nanorum diversis, tum rusticis tum fossoribus aperuisse, de variis rebus quaesitos respondidisse. Immose quodam die in longissimum subterraneum tractum aliquoiusque venarum detenandum, gratiam ingressum, iuxta rivulum quendam in fabulo umido pueri triennis vistigia reperisse, et curiose examinase. Et cum sibi persuadere non posset, puerum huius aetatis horridum hunc subterraneum meatum umquam ingressum fuisse. Tandem avicinis montanorum daemonculorum vistigia esse intellexisse, qui ad fossorum aviditatem ascendendam latibus vestigiis ut plurimum superstitiosis omnibus illudere soleant. Cum non ita pridem quae sivi visem e magistris et praefectis fodinarum metallicarum in Hungaria, num sub inde compararent in fodinis daemonculi subterranei, quos Bergmanelin seu pygmaios montanos vocant, sic datis ad me literis responderunt. Transactis temporibus visi fuerunt tales spiritus a fossoribus, qui etiam fossores in fugam egerunt, atque extra fossam perpulerunt, aliquando magnum tumultum atque rumores excitarunt, plerumque quando aeri diviti appropinquarunt, omen simili praecesit. Hoc ex relatione Schlapelpanani minerarum praefecti in Gerengrunt, vir sane ille Peregrigius Bernardus a Brun, praefectus fodinarum Hungaricarum, ita deis mihi scribit. Certissimus est spiritus vel spectra in fossis percipi, non solum modo ac si varios labores per agerunt, quorum tamen nullum cognoscitur vestigium, sed iteam fossoribus insultant, lapides in illos proigiunt, plures etiam ita acriter vexant, ut labores suos vix per agere possint, secuti tempore non ita pridem elapso contigit quidam fossori schlemmitstiano, iam fatis functo, qui nomen Georgius Eger, qui cum solus in fodina esset, spectra huius mode se vidisse testatus est, at tamen saepius adiuntur, quam videntur, dum simile quod contigit plerumque sequitur bonum vel malum, fossores quoque superstitiones credunt, siquis similem spiritum viderit, atque visionem confestim revelit. Revelantem brevi moriturum, quorum plura habentur exempla. Inter caetera contigit Schlemnitzi tale quipiam elapsis iam vitine annis, quidam nomine Simeon Kraus, qui similia sociis neravit, subit annea morte perit, ad maiorum confirmationem sunt plures senes fide digni, qui sub fide juramenti et conscientiae sequentia effati sunt. Primus Martinus Lici metallurgus digit, quatenus sexdecim annis elapsis, quadam die dominica de nocte in fodina quaedam, ober pieberstolen vocata. Retrospiciendo viderit virulum statura pueri sexuel octo annorum, indutum veste coriacea, pileolato, magnicitaque fulgentibus oculis, ex cuius aspectu cum solus esset non parum territus, et ioque fustem tenens in virulum proiecit, qui evanescens ultra non visus fuit. Secundus Paulus Wetzstein, fossor in Oberpierberstolen, digit, quatenus viginti quinque annis elapsis in quatam fodina Schemnitiana morer erbstolen vocata. Die sabbati audiverit vehementor laborare, et dioque recendo socios esse, accidens neminem reperit, opinator socios se obscondisse, velleque secum iocari, lumine ultra quaerens acclamatus fuit his verbis. Bah, bah! Unde vehementer tertius cognoscentesque rem non recte se habere, confestim ex fodina ascendit diversiorum pedens socios invent, quibus narrare coepit, quae sibi accinderint, ille ipsum statim tacere iuserunt, nihilo minus statim decebuit aegrotus trium septemianarum spatio, specie scabiei in facie ipsi erupit, aqua tamen non nisi dicis tribus hebdomatis liberatus, quibus ex actis vires recepit. Tertius Christianus Mullor facor in eodam loco affirmat, quod una septimiana subsequenti, qua dicta contigissent. Idem sibi quoque acciderit, cum socius ipsum in fodina reliquisset, atque se iusisset diutius ibidem morare, audivisse supra se vehementer laborare, et circo volens scire quis ibidem laboraret, quaerendo nemirem invent, ad sum locum redit. Et iterum laborare audivit, deno inquirens neminem reperit, unde terrore percussus ex fodia recessit, cum verros socios miraretur illud tam citose sepultum, ille narrare coepit, quae contigissent, socios vero ipsum facere iusit, nihilo minus illum rigor invasit, et spatio duarum hebdomadum imbecillis decubuit. Dicti viri multo plura narrare possent, quomodo similia spectra vel pygmai in fossis varias actiones exerceant, quomodo sursum et deorsum vertant omnia, quos tumultus plerumque ruinae sequi videantur, ac si quipiam intras aquas magno fragore praecipitarentur, et quando ruinae quaeruntur de minimum quidem vestigium laboris vel casus inveniatur, actenus et ex relatione Schlemnitiana, Schultius adit. A longo tempore elapso visus est Pygmaius seu virulus montanus, et non sine causa vocatur diminutive virulus, quia ad modum est parvus, secute ex eius vis digiis patet, cum enim terrant lutosam et tenacem transiret. Vistigium relinquit puerorum duorum vel trium annorum, vistigio simile. Lumen quod manu portat est fulgentis et claris splendoris. Si hic virulus intrando fossas fossores praecedit, bonam spem facit divitiarum et aeris. Hoc cor Georgius Schultz. Virulus montanus eo pygmaeus non invenitur, nisi inditioribus mineris, in mineris cupreis cum forarent, quoque visus fuit. Hoc Philippus Bernardus Aprun, multa similia, mihi transmissit Publi Andreas Schäfer, qui ut insignem notitiam habet fodinarum Hungaricarum, ita quod curiose dictorum spectrorum rationem inquisivit, verum cum iam relatis in omnibus congruat, ea non iteranda duxi. Chapter 4 on Subterranean Demons. That subterranean demons exist not only do the profane, but also sacred writers unanimously affirm, concerning whom see Delrius. For since these powers of darkness flee from the light, as the seal of the divine countenance, certainly no more fitting place should be assigned to them than the underground abyss of perpetual darkness. According to the Apostle of Jude, verse 6, "But those angels who did not keep their own principality, but abandoned their dwelling place, great God has reserved them for judgment, in eternal chains under dense darkness." That these subterranean demons are given powers of darkness, therefore, is so certain that no one could doubt it without losing faith. And since, by the just dispensation of God, they appear to men from time to time, clothed in the guise of human form, either to tempt or to torment them, lest they too should be lacking in this our treatise of the subterranean world, composed of all the degrees of creatures, I have then thought it necessary to treat of them in this place, so that it may be clear what is to be thought of them, and how to resist their devices. Historians report that demons were observed in 3 places in particular. First, in the northern regions condemned to perpetual darkness. Secondly, in the harsh deserts. Thirdly, in the underground tunnels of metal mines. But since the said demons usually appear in the form of cubit-sized dwarfs, from here the legend of pygmies fighting with cranes at the Riparian mountains seems to have arisen, whom the geographers place in the extreme northern land, Arabic geographers in the kingdom of Gog and Magog, to which most writers of the North World agree. Paulus Jovius, in his book on the legation of the Muscovites, says, beyond the Lapps, the region between Corum in the north, oppressed by perpetual darkness, there are to be found pygmies, some witnesses of exceptional faith have reported, who, when they have grown to their full height, do not exceed the size of our children of 10 years. These are a timid race of men, expressing themselves in babbling speech, so that the more they seem distant from men and closer to apes in posture, senses, and height. Concerning these, see Olaus the Great, who calls them screlingers, that is, cubit folk. Even the most staunch critics of monsters, Plutarch, Ctesias, and Pliny, recall that there were seen at many times, and this I will not deny, but I will not easily assert that they were real men, since no such nation of pygmies has yet to be found, given so much discovery of the world. Therefore it may be concluded that they were seen by rude and rustic men in the farthest corners of the north, those almost damned by the darkness of the night. For since these men, as Olaus testifies, are prone to every kind of superstition, and easily devote themselves to demons, it should certainly seem strange to no one that they appear in the form of a human pygmy, both to propagate superstition in the simple-minded, and to win them over with the benefits with which they are sometimes affected. But if such a race of diminutive men existed in such obscure regions, why, then, did they remain hidden from the most curious Batavians? For 60 years now they have been doing almost nothing else than exploring all the most abstruse corners of the north, and indeed of the whole world, and yet they have discovered nothing about this kind of pygmy nation. Why has no such dwarf ever been taken from Lappia, Biarmia, Kremacia, or Finlandia, or the other neighboring regions in Germany, Sweden, Denmark, and Holland? Since, however, they do not take monsters of lesser importance with them to the remotest parts of India, to their homeland, nor is there anyone to be found today who dares to claim to have seen such a similar cubit-sized pygmy in those parts. All that the ancient geographers have handed down about this kind of pygmy is therefore fable, related only by the simple people in their reports. As a wave pushes along a wave, so too a myth pushes a myth, and while they attach the anti-crane warfare of these dwarves as a marvel, that is to say, they imagine them engaged in perpetual war with these cranes, who have offended them by forming an army. Thus I see Jorund and Olaus discussing these at great length. I say then that these were none other than demons, lovers of dark places like this, who appeared from time to time to deceive a rural people living without any law or religion, and to bind them to perpetual servitude. Hence, later, the fabulous story of pygmies not only spread throughout the whole world, but, what is strange, rooted belief even in the minds of wise men. Wherefore I am certain that these fantastic lands of dwarves are from the number of those whom even to this day they not infrequently encounter in metal mines, whom they also call mountain daemoniculi, of whom Georgius Agricola thus writes in his book on subterranean animals. There occur two kinds of these demons. One is rough, fierce, and terrifying in appearance, which they call Sneberg, which, when aroused, causes the greatest destruction to the miners. Then there are certain gentle ones, whom some Germans, like the Greeks, call kobalis, because they are seen to imitate men. For these laugh as if they are joyful. They seem to do many things, when they really do nothing at all. Others call them little mountain men, bergmannlin, signifying the stature of most, namely, dwarves about 3 feet tall. They seem to be old men, dressed in the manner of miners, that is, with a kind of laced tunic and leather hanging about their waists. They do not usually harm the metal workers, but they wander in wells and tunnels, and when they are doing nothing, they seem to be engaged in all kinds of labor, as if now they were digging veins, now pouring what was dug up into vessels, now turning a tractor. Although they harass the workers with gravel during the day, they very rarely harm them, and never do so unless they themselves have first been provoked with laughter or curses, not unlike those demons whom the Germans call Guteli, or trolls, who have assumed the sex of both woman and man, and who are said to have been chiefly in the service of other nations, as has been a great fable among the Swedes. These things from Agricola, and from which it is clear that these are the same ones about whom he says performed the duty of servants in the last step of the north. It has been reported to me that these mountain demons are also seen in the Tyrolean mines, whom, unless they deposit a small portion of their daily provisions, consisting of stew, pastries, and cheese, into a certain place, then the miners are not free from danger on that day, and the wiles of the demon so infatuates the miners with superstition that some do not hesitate to redeem his harassment with a certain sacred rite, and strive to appease him in every way, especially when they hear certain blows of the demon's hammer, for then the fortunate ones completely convince themselves that this is a sign that the new gold-bearing veins will soon be discovered. And as well, Kisatus, already often cited, confirms this in his description of the Helvetic mountain, which he calls Pilatus, in these words, translated from German into Latin. Among other things, some wonders are reported about mountain demons, whom they call Bergmannlin. endowed with the form and stature of dwarves, who lived in the caves and hidden tunnels of the mountains, and performed wonders with metal miners. Some are said to have loved those gifted with gold, others to have attacked them in terrible ways, and some, provoked to anger, have thrown themselves down the rocky cliffs of the mountains, which indeed is likely to have happened not through these fabulous pygmies, but through the schemes and various illusions of cacodæmons in the just judgment of God. Not long ago, a man of no mean learning wrote to me as well that these diabolical spectres had often appeared in the form of dwarves to various people, both peasants and miners, and had answered their questions about various matters. Indeed, one day, having entered a long underground passage, which was somewhat blocked by the grace of the veins, he had found the footprints of a 3-year-old boy near a certain brook in a damp cave, and had examined them with curiosity. And since he could not convince himself that a boy of this age had entered this horrid underground passage, he finally understood from his neighbors that they were the footprints of mountain demons, who, in order to inflame the greed of miners, are usually wont to deceive superstitious men with their varied footprints. And when I had not long ago asked the masters and prefects of the metal mines in Hungary whether underground demons, whom they called Bergmannelin, or mountain pygmies, occasionally appeared in the mines, they answered me with the following letters. In times past, such spirits were seen by miners, who even put them to flight and drove them out of the mine, sometimes raising great commotion and rumors. Usually when they approached the rich air, a similar omen preceded them. This is from a report of Schnappelmann, the superintendent of mines in Heringrund. That distinguished man, Bernard of Brunn, superintendent of the Hungarian mines, writes to me about them thus. It is most certain that spirits or ghosts are perceived in the mines, not only as if they were carrying out various labors, of which, however, no trace is known, but they also insult the miners, throw stones at them, and even harass many so severely that they can hardly carry out their labor, as happened not so long ago to a certain Schneemitz miner, now deceased, named Georg Egger, who, when he was alone in the mine, testified that he had seen such ghosts. However, they are heard more often than seen. When something similar happens, good or evil usually follows. The miners are also superstitiously in belief that if anyone sees a similar spirit and then reveals the vision, it reveals that he will soon die, of which there are many known examples. Among other things, something like this happened in Chemnitz, after many years had passed. A certain Simon Kraus, who had told similar things to his companions, suddenly died. For greater confirmation, there are several trustworthy elders who, under oath and on the strength of their conscience, have stated the following. The first, Martin Licki, a metallurgist, tells how 16 years prior, one Sunday night in a mine called Oberpierberstolen, he looked back and saw a small man the size of a boy of 6 or 8 years old, dressed in leather clothes, a wide hat and large shining eyes. Since he was alone, he was quite frightened by the sight of him, and so he grabbed a club and threw it at the little man, who disappeared and was never seen again. The second one, from Paul Weststein, a miner in Oberpierberstolen, says that 25 years ago, in a certain mine in Chemnitz, called the Murrererbestolen, he heard that on the Sabbath there was a lot of work to be done, and therefore that there were companions to help him on the way. When he approached, he found no one. He thought that his companions had hidden themselves and wanted to joke with him. Looking for a light beyond, he was accosted with the following words, "Bah, bah." Whereupon, greatly frightened and realizing that he wasn't doing well, he immediately climbed out of the mine and asked for an inn to find his companions, to whom he began to relate what had just happened to him. They immediately ordered him to be silent. Nevertheless, he lay down sick for 3 weeks. A kind of scabies broke out on his face, from which, however, he wasn't freed until after 3 weeks had passed, after which he regained his strength. The third story, from Christian Müller, a miner, affirms that in the same place 1 week after the events just described above, the exact same thing happened to him, when his companion left him in the mines and ordered him to stay there longer, and he heard someone working very hard directly above him. So he wanted to write who was working there, but when he searched, he found no one, and returned to his place. When he heard someone working again and searched a second time, he again found no one. Whereupon, struck with terror, he withdrew from the mines. When his companion was surprised that he had hidden himself so quickly, he began to relate what had happened. However, his companion ordered him to be silent, but nevertheless a chill seized him, and for the space of 2 weeks he lay weakened. The same man could tell much more, how similar spectres or pygmies perform various actions in ditches, how they turn everything up and down, which tumults seem to be followed mostly by ruin, as if something were thrown into the water with a great crash. When the ruins are searched for, not even the slightest trace of labor or accident is found. So much from the Schneemitian account. Schulz adds, "A long time ago a pygmy or mountain midget was seen, and it is not without reason that it is called, in the diminutive sense, little man, because it is quite small, as is evident from its footprints, for when it has crossed the muddy and sticky ground, it leaves a trace similar to that of a 2 or 3-year-old child. The light it carries in its hand is of a dazzling and clear splendor. If this midget precedes the diggers in entering the trenches, then it gives good hope of riches and wealth." This from George Schultz. The mountain midget or pygmy is not found except in richer ores. When they were present, it was also seen in copper ones. This was reported by Philip Bernard from Prun. Many similar things were transmitted to me by Publius Andreas Schaefer, who, as he has a remarkable knowledge of Hungarian mines, also curiously investigated the reason for the said spectra. But since it agrees with everything already cited, I do not consider it necessary to repeat it.